Welcome back to Global Perspectives 2017, the end of day 2, the longest day of Global Perspectives. I'm here with Awal, who is with the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center that's based in Nigeria. He's also the chair of the board of Amnesty International Nigeria, and he's also the head of Transparency International in Nigeria. So I guess we'll just kick off by saying, how are you finding being here at Global Perspectives 2017?
Yeah, it's very quite exciting and very interesting because there are a lot of learning going on, a lot of new contacts that I've established. So it is really enriching my organizational outreach and also learning new methods of work in the development perspective.
And something we were just talking about before we came on air, which was the theme of Global Perspectives 2016, was shrinking civic space. This is something Awal is knowledgeable about, especially in the region he's from. What have you got to say about shrinking civic space and how it's affecting CSOs?
There's an increasing attempt to shrink and restrict civil society in many parts of Africa, and recently in Nigeria there was a bill that was introduced in the parliament to basically restrain and limit civil society operation in Nigeria, what we think it would tantamount to a serious undermining of civil society to continue to advocate for good governance, transparency and accountability, and also social justice. So we are doing everything possible to ensure that we first educate the general public about the implication of such kind of legislation if it comes on board, and to also sensitize even the legislators that try to push for such kind of ridiculous law that would actually undermine the effectiveness of civil society organizations. So we are doing everything possible to raise the awareness, to raise the concern and our objection to the fact that civil society, they did not deserve to be undermined, they did not deserve to be restricted, they did not deserve to be totally restricted from their operation, because they are actually helping to ensure that the society function. They are actually working to ensure that democracy and freedom of expression is actually allowed, because our constitution also allows for freedom of expression, allows for freedom of assembly. So we don't see reason why such kind of law should be introduced to undermine the effectiveness of civil society organizations. So we're doing everything possible to mobilize support across Nigeria and even outside Nigeria. And this particular trend is actually going on in other parts of the country, other parts of Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Uganda, in Ethiopia, in many places. You have this kind of calculated attempt by some of the government overzealous officials who did not want to, transparency and accountability, who did not want civil society to continue to advocate for good governance. So it is a response to this agitation for good governance, transparency and accountability that is making some of these, officials to introduce this very ridiculous and, unacceptable legislation that would restrict civil society functioning and their effectiveness.
And how do you think we can unite together in order to push back against this shrinking civic space?
Yeah, with this meeting that we are having now, which has global leaders, we can come up with a very strong statement that should be circulated all over the world, for the authorities across the world to know that civil society leaders met and they have raised a strong objection against any attempt to close the space for civil society organization, because even the United Nations has opened up space for civil society to actually contribute to its processes. So we don't understand why some governments will find it very difficult to allow civil society to operate, because civil society are very responsible people. Many civil society organizations, they only advocate for good governance. They are not involved in any criminality. They are not involved in anything that would make the government to feel like they are actually a threat to the national security. So we don't really see why this attempt should be happening, and we also believe that civil society is really helping to complement the sincere effort of government, because as civil society we engage in terms of advocacy, awareness, we engage in training, we engage on research that will inform some of the government decisions. So it is actually a complementarity effort that we are making, and if government understand it from that perspective, I think civil society should be embraced. Civil society should be associated with, because they bring in a lot of value. They contribute towards national development. So therefore, we think that those ill-informed, public officials who they see civil society as other competitors or as a threat to their continued looting and stealing, will have to understand that civil society, by its nature, cannot see these evils in governance and keep quiet, because we represent the interests of voiceless people. The masses, or the voiceless people, they depend on civil society to speak out for their right, and to also help them seek redress when their fundamental rights are being tampered with.
Thank you. I think you've covered a lot of ground there, and certainly those are topics that we've been touching on throughout this conference. And I'm sort of sitting here and wondering, because we've talked a lot about the resources that are available, and also the programs that we're going to have to implement that are coming forward. In terms of innovation and programs, what have you learned here, or what have you seen in Nigeria or in the region which you consider to be innovative kind of programs?
With the new global framework of SDG, which is the Sustainable Development Goal, it says that there should be local resource mobilization to finance development. So which means that by implication, civil society organizations will also double their efforts to ensure that they find innovative ways to continue to support and finance their programming. And therefore this meeting is a very good eyes opener to me, because as new ideas are evolving on how we can actually mobilize resources to carry out our work, is very fantastic and is very innovative, and I'm really glad that I'm here, because there are a lot of new initiatives that I would take back home to be able to see how we can galvanize and mobilize local resource to be able to carry out our work in terms of ensuring that SDG is implemented, because SDG covers huge area of development and endeavor. So we are going to continue to do that, and learning from what I am seeing here will definitely be very useful. And I hope to see that I maintain contact with a lot of experts who have expertise and who have tested methodology of new approach to resource mobilization.
And what are you hoping to get from the remaining, I guess we're almost into the last day now. What are you hoping to get out of the last bit of global perspective?
I would like to consolidate my networks, because this is a good opportunity to network with a lot of development partners, with the donors, with other, civil society activists. So it is a very enriching, and I would like to see how I can consolidate my network with them. Second, it is also a good opportunity to continue to learn from other organizations that are doing very well, especially in the area that I work. And also I'm also happy to share some of my own perspective on how we do our work in Nigeria, and also at a global level that we do advocate for particularly in the area of anti-corruption on assets recovery, illicit financial flow, and beneficial ownership, as well as the implementation of SDD. These are key important perspective that I have seen here, and I am exchanging, learning, and sharing a lot with colleagues here.
Well, I'm glad you're having such a great and rich time here at the Global Perspectives 2017. Thank you very much for joining me for this live interview. I would just say to our viewers, if you have a question or a comment to Awal, please leave it in the space below the video, and we can ask him, and we can get a response from him. We still have one more day left, but I just say thank you very much for watching, and thank you to Awal for being interviewed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.